is my screen, can you see my screen?
Yes, can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. And it's a pleasure to have so many people on this session. Right in the beginning, I just want to make one very humble sharing with you all. And that is that I'm as much on this journey as a lot of you are. And yes, I have, yoga has been a very, it's been a part of my life for many, many years. Though coaching has only been a part of my life for the last 5, 6 years, 7 years maybe. And it was actually when I went into coaching, I realized that, okay, there's so much in our own practice of yoga that can help us as coaches to not only just as to enhance our presence, but also in our coaching processes with the coaches. But the wisdom of yoga is very huge, as most of you know that. It's really vast. And whatever little bit I know, I'm going to share with all of you. But it's very, very little compared to the vast wisdom there is. The other thing I would like to say is that this is the way I have understood things, what I'm going to share with you today. It's my understanding of the concepts of the yoga philosophy, and the way I understand it as being psychology. So please, all of you have also been on your own journeys. Please be open to share as and when you want to share whatever. This is just a 1-hour session. The topic is too vast to be able to do it. So in this session, what I'm really going to do is just share with you a little bit of an overview of how I see the link, and also sharing up 1 or 2 concepts. What I also have on this program is I have invited Fabian from Bangkok, who has been a part of the last batch that we did. So actually with CTT, we do a 30-hour program on Yog Psychology and coaching, where, you know, we go through these entire 7 sessions or more. Actually, it's almost a 4-month program that we do. And Fabian was a part of that last batch. So I have invited her because more than what I can say, she can actually share her own experience about how she feels, you know, the presence piece that we are talking about here. How has that been impacted after her journey that she has taken? So that's how we'll go. Please be free to put up, you know, if you want me to stop, if you feel there's too much talking happening, you want to just stop me and say, okay, we want some questions here. Please feel free to do that. Okay, I think somebody needs to mute the... Can I request everyone to please mute? Go on mute. Okay. So let's just quick, what's the purpose of this session? It's just, like I said already, that share some concepts from our ancient wisdom of yoga that I believe can be directly linked with coach effectiveness. Some insights on the practices and the personal experience, which I've already shared with you. Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to make this a little engaging session, because I truly believe, and we all believe, that everyone can, you know, there is something that all of us can chip in into this session. So I would request you to explore these 3 words, and you can either write, or you can put it on, and then maybe Aishwarya can help us to just kind of phrase it. Can you do that, Aishwarya? So we'll take the first one, coaching. So let's just explore, what do we understand with coaching? What's coaching to us? And we'll keep this simple. And
so Alka, you want people to write in the comment box?
yeah, that'll be good. If they want to say, they can, but maybe they can write and then we can just,
Okay.
I am trying to see how I have lost everyone.
No, everybody is there.
No, I know, but I can't see the chat on my box.
So if you click on the chat, Alka, there's the border below. If you see, there's a next to share, there's a chat. If you click on that, you'll be able to see. Can you?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. So coaching is having deeper discussion. Coaching is being there 100% for the client. Let's all explore. Okay, great. World of exploration. Now, Aish, if you can just take on these keywords, yeah, and then we can look at them. Exploration, being there 100%, helping the client to find the self, Lamplighter, so that the coachee is enabled to see the paths more clearly. Anyone else? Okay.
Helping client his or her goals. Preeti says helping client in his or her goals. You might not be able
to think more about him or herself as the situation.
Correct.
Okay. So you have a bit of this, Aishwarya?
Yes.
Down? Okay. Exploration. We can all also try to remember this. Exploration. Coach is a companion in the coachee's journey. Beautiful. Okay, let's understand what yoga is. What do we understand as yoga? Science of the mind and the body.
PT says union of the body and mind.
Union of body and mind. Union of mind, body, soul. Science, taming of the mind and thoughts, consciousness. Beautiful. Is an alignment with your inner self. Lovely. Being mindful and aware. Okay. So now let's explore presence. What do we understand as presence? Because I do know that there is an ICF definition on coaching, but we leave that behind. We'll just go simply with our own understanding. When we talk about a presence, whether it is a coach presence or whether it is just presence, someone's presence, what do we understand? What does that bring to our mind? Being mindful and aware, being here and now in the entirety. sending vibrations, being fully alive in the now. One aspect of presence is to listen deeply. Beautiful. Lovely, Aparna, just being. Connected. Powerful. Allowing the coach to find and explore. Allowing the coachee to find and explore. Please don't be sorry, because as coaches, we also need to do that. Being there all the time. Okay. Okay, so I think this is all. Now, this was amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. Being resourceful and helping to reflect and introspect. I don't know if you are all being able to see the link in all these 3 words that you have all defined and you have all shared about. Let's now look at the coach. Okay, so we explored coaching, we explored yoga, and we explored presence. Now, one of the things that emerged for me from this sharing is that a lot of us are talking about coaching. As coach, do we not need coaching ourselves? Do we try the coaching process on ourselves? I'm sure we all do. Because if we don't, then we can't really do much. I mean, we can't really help the coaches then. Because we've got to have gone through this process for ourselves. So for the time being, we will let go. We'll forget our coaches. We'll just look at this whole aspect for ourselves as a coach. Let's look about the coaching process for ourselves. And let's look at this alignment of self with ourselves, of being in the now with ourselves, of listening deeply with ourselves, becoming aware with ourselves. So everything that we just now defined, let's look at that in context to just ourselves. How do we get these things as a coach? Rather than making the coachee go towards a direction, how about myself? So we'll try to explore that. So any of you want to share anything that has emerged for you in context to all these 3 words and whatever everybody said? We'll be very happy to hear your thought on that, either here or right, whatever you wish to. Okay, so we'll move on. So, have you all heard of Timothy Galway? Anyone? Please, either you can unmute or you can write. Okay. Okay, please share. What have you heard about him? Who's he? Okay. So Aparna or Krishnan, would you like to share about, or Ravi, would you like to share about Timothy Galway? Please, you can unmute yourself and share.
Yeah, I've actually not read The Inner Game of Tennis, but I've read Inner Game of Work. It was one of the projects that CTT gave us when we did our ACC.
Okay. Okay.
So I think most of them would know about it.
Would you like to share something about Timothy Galway himself?
I know he was a tennis coach. It's been a while though. I know he was a tennis coach.
Yeah,
and
that's
he incorporated, he's bought in the coaching method. He changed the coaching method for, for people that he coached. That's what I can remember.
Yeah, absolutely. So Timothy Galway is actually known as the godfather of coaching because he totally changed the way coaching was looked upon. And he brought this whole personal coaching and professional coaching into the whole society or the global world, right? And he started it. Yes, you're right. He was a tennis coach. And interestingly, okay, maybe when I see the chat, it takes away the... So interestingly, he wrote this book, The Inner Game of Tennis. And I'll just share one aspect of it, which he said very beautifully. I mean, that's what the whole book is about. He said, before any game happens outside, there is a game that is happening in the mind, much before the game is happening outside. And if we can be aware of the game that's happening on the inner side, then there is a much better chance of success on the outer game. So in short, he was talking about getting to understand yourself and getting to know yourself and being the being part that we are talking about, and being able to, someone said it and shared that, to be able to know your mind, to be able to be aware of the mind, the thoughts, and to be able to manage them. And that is what, and interestingly, I mean, that's just that there was one Maharajji Rawat, who was his guru, and Timothy had come to India and he had studied the Eastern ancient scriptures out here under him. Okay, how do I? So I'll just read out this. When the mind is free of any thought or judgment, it acts like a mirror. Then and only then can we know things as they are. So he's talking about free of being any thought or judgment. Now, effectiveness clusters how we see it. But we, as coach, there's something that we know, there's something that we do, and yet there is something which, again, one of you actually brought out, the being part. And we understand yoga actually enhancing this being part, which is where the presence, actually that vibration that we spoke about, comes out. What underlies behavior? Now, again, this is Bill's, most of you might be aware of this. So there is behavior, but if behavior needs to change, then there has to be what we call as transformational shift. And that transformation shift cannot happen unless we go right down onto the being part. And the shift happening there. A lot of us can shift things on the behavior because we want to do it, but if the thing has to really transform, then it's got to go to the deep level. Before I go into the next piece, I am going to ask Fabian to actually just come up and share with us. So she did this whole yoga coaching piece, and she's also a coach. And how did she manage the transformation bit for herself as her own presence? How did the whole practice help her? And this, Fabian, can I invite you here?
Fabian, you are muted. Fabian, you are muted.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Better. Okay. So good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here with you all tonight. So Alka, you asked me to share a bit about my own journey here when it comes to enhance my own presence. If you don't mind, what it's related to the 3 words, I wanted to also share what, kind of coaching, psychology and yoga, how did I come across to those 3? And then how does that help me? So I think that psychology, yoga, and coaching happened at different moments in my life, and I would say in a row. Like first I discovered yoga, psychology at university, because I always been interested in what makes human being the way they are, doing the way they do, and thinking the way they think. But then I was a bit stuck without knowing what to do with that. Okay, I'm interested, it's a study, know how to process it, how to help people to be better at themselves. And this is my way to come across coaching at that time as a process to better ourselves, to be a better version of ourselves, to unleash our own potential, to achieve whatever we want in life. And the reason why I'm telling that story is because I never come to realize that the first focus should be put on my own self. I was always very much interested in knowing about the others and helping the others without realizing that to help them to accomplish something, I have to tune inward. And this is where yoga came across my own journey, first on the mat as practicing asana and tuning my gaze inward, like in a journey of body sensation, and seeing then the effect on my mind. So later at one of the APAC conferences, it was three years ago, came across Alka pads and Atul pads with the YPC, so Yoga Psychology to Coaching, and I said, this is something interesting. Then there is something more behind yoga, that this own experiment about my my body sensation and tuning inwards, and what does that exactly affect, and how can I do something with that? And I think that the whole process about yoga psychology, and I'm gonna quote somebody about it because I really like that. How does that help me really to with my own presence? So this quote is, and I'm sorry because I forgot who wrote that, but is yoga is a ritual that I perform to help myself remain established in awareness. And I think this is really what it is. It gives you a lot of concepts, tangible stuff to tackle, to work on your own presence. Because I was also very much interested in knowing, if I'm listening to what is the definition of presence really, how does that exactly manifest? And if I know how does that manifest, so I know how to leverage and on my own self and see what to tackle exactly to be more present. And I think that yoga in that way provide me that kind of ritual of tuning inwards and knowing where to go, where to search to better my own presence, if that's a bit clear. Thank you, Alka.
Thank you. Thank you, Fabian. We'll bring Fabian again later at the end of the session for something else as well. Any questions? Anybody has any, or should we continue? I shall wait for 30 seconds. Okay. So let us look at, so when we speak about the presence piece where yoga is concerned, and we speak about, okay, as what aspects of an individual are we really talking about here? Because yoga talks about, it tells us that as a whole person, we've got to evolve. So when we say the whole person, what does that whole person, or what does that being when we speak about really look like? It is very interesting when we when we try to sit down and try to answer, what's this being? And it was not that simple to answer that question. We often use this word, the being. But what does this being really mean? So we have a concept in yoga, which actually gives us some structure and some kind of ability to understand the being. And I'll share the koshas with you. Koshas, which are the sheets of the being. So it's not the being, because in yoga, being is that the centermost thing, which you are the most purest form of any being is that being, which is the most conscious part. But what we have over that, over the, whether you call the true self or the Atma, what you have over there are the sheets. And before we come to that self, we've got to work on these sheets. We've got to work on each of these sheets. So the first sheet is the Anandmaya sheet, Kosh. And this is known as the physical aspect, the physical body. And we've got to work, we've got to be able to reach that true self. We've got to have a healthy body. We've got to be physically fit. To do anything, we've got to be physically fit. We've got to be health conscious. So we've got to eat the right food. We've got to do the right exercises. We've got to do the, take care of our recreation, relaxation, all of that. And that's the Anandmaya Kosh. The next is the Pranamaya Kosh, which is the energy, the breathing, the life force, the vitality. And through pranayam, yoga tells us how we can maintain our energy, our vitality, and our life force through the simple exercises, through the simple pranayams that we do, techniques of pranayam. The second is the third is the Manomaya Kosh, which is the mind. Now we've got to work on our mind, the thoughts, especially if we look at it very simply. We've got to be able to think positive. Yeah, a lot of times situations make us immediately go to negative. We think the worst first. So we've got to start learning to be positive and make our mind positive. At most of the times, we as human beings revolve around these three koshas. We continuously are working around these three. Vijnanamaya and Anandmaya is very far for us at the moment. And I mean, okay, can't really say for everyone because that's again a judgment, but most of the times we are struggling in these three koshas. The Vijnanamaya Kosh is a wisdom. It's where we move beyond these. We've kind of managed these three and we move more towards clarity. We have much more clarity of ourself or our understanding. It's an intellect kosh, and it kind of brings a maturity within us, both for ourselves, at the same time for our relationships. It's much beyond the mind kosh. Anandmaya Kosh is much closer to the true self, and that's why it's more subtle. It's where you are completely at bliss, and where we are a lot of less disturbances happen. We are more balanced in this state, and we don't move. The pendulums don't move. Most of the times we keep moving around in our inner energy, from negative to positive, positive to negative, feel low, feel high. But when we come towards the Vijnanamaya and Anandmaya, we are much, much more balanced in ourselves. So these are the sheets where we've got to work, where the efforts have to be made as far as the yoga is concerned. Okay, yes, this is what I have already shared with you. Clarity, wisdom, mental body, manas. Well, other concept which we work towards with the practice of yoga. So there are gunas. We are all made up of these 3 gunas. And I think most of you would know this probably, but there is a rajas and there is a tamas. And tamas is what the principle of tamas is, to restrain, to bring blocks, obstructions. That's the function, what it does. When the tamas is high, we are very depressed. We don't want to do much. We are totally in a lethargic state. And we feel very low. We think we look at everything very negatively. And that's where tamas comes from. Rajas is a very hyperactive person. When the rajas is really dominant, then there's a lot of activity within us. There's constant movement. You'll see people who are always on the move. They want something or the other, just can't sit straight, I have to do something. Either I've got to go out or I've got to do something. And that's when the rajas is dominant. Sattva, the principle is illumination. Function is revealed. It reveals its true nature. It illuminates. It brings balance. It brings clarity. It brings focus. It brings light. And at any given time, one of these will be dominant in us. Either it will be rajas, or it will be tamas, or it will be sattva. One of them will be dominant. When one is dominant, the other 2 are supporting. So interestingly, if tamas is dominant, then the role rajas will play will say, okay, continue in this movement. Stay there. That's how the others support. So if the sattva is there, tamas also plays a very interesting role when the sattva is dominating. Tamas will help to maintain that energy level there. Okay, it will not try to obstruct when the sattva is high. That's the interesting part of the sattva. Again, in these attributes, as a coach or presence of a coach, our effort is to continuously be aware of the guna play within us. And if we feel that our rajas is high, then maintain that balance towards the sattva. If we feel tamas is high, from tamas we move to rajas, because it's difficult to move from tamas to sattva. I'd rather go towards an activity, get myself active, and then maybe move towards sattva. So that's how the gunas play. And to, again, the presence piece that we spoke about, if you remember the words that you shared, the clarity, the connection with yourself, having the listening ability towards yourself, all of that will happen more when we are in a state of sattva. And yoga practice gives us many techniques on how do we keep our sattva state going. How do we manage that piece? It's not easy. We will continue to go to tamas, we'll continue to go to rajas. But if we are aware of what's happening to us, there are much better chances of our being able to move that. So these are, I'm basically sharing 2 of these concepts here. I'll give you a little keywords around which you can have a look on all the 3. If you look at the words in sattva, and if you will look at it, this is exactly what we were all talking about. And these are the words that we used when we spoke of presence. We spoke of clarity, calmness, mindfulness, being a mindful coach. Okay, so there is one very interesting concept, which actually I'm going to get Fabienne to come in and talk, because that's one of her very favorite concepts, as she has applied. We speak as coaches, we speak about obstruction in coaching. We always ask the coachee, and I'm sure we're asking the same question to ourselves: what is obstructing us in doing what we want to do? Where is the obstruction? What is stopping us from doing? We know we want to do this. We know we want to go there. Yes, sometimes we are confused, but sometimes we know what we want to do, and yet we are not able to do it. So what stops us? And Yoga gives us very interesting concept of klesh. It says that obstruction comes from concept of klesh. There are 5 different types of klesh, and these kleshas are, if anything you look at, it could be one of that. So I will share with you I think Fabienne will help you to understand klesh a little bit more. I will bring on the slide for you of klesh. Fabienne?
Yep.
Should I get on the slide, Fabienne?
Please.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll explain the 5 different kind of obstacle blocks on the way that we can meet whatever we are trying to achieve, reach, and that we feel that we are not on the right track. I think that the kind of example that I can take here, the best could be my own self and me as a coach. I hope that you have experienced that sometimes, being in a coaching session, trying your own best to be present to your coachee, and finding after wrapping up the coaching session that you were not so satisfied about your own presence and not knowing very much why. I think that that kind of approach helped me to locate some of my obstacles on the way. So first is that has sometimes also be presented as a 3, so that you have the roots, which is the biggest one of the obstacle at the bottom, which is ignorance, avidya. It's just being not aware. Is a bit as if you can compare that with one concept that we have seen in coaching sometimes is I don't know that I don't know. You're not aware of your own potential, and sometimes you're not even aware of the potential of your coachee. Second is Asmita Ego Identification. This happen when you're so identified with who you want to be or who you think that you have, that you should be, that you lost the connection with your own self by being too focused on your own self. And coaching session happened to me sometimes that I wanted so desperately to be a good coach and to be understood as a coach or seen as a coach, that I would have all my gaze on my own self, trying to find the right question all the time, the powerful question, that I lost the connection. Then you have the 2 branches of the 3, being at the same kind of level, which is raga, attachment, and dvesha, aversion. And this kind of trouble that I had with ego led me to attachment. It's sometimes the way that I am so attached to one thing to another. That could be attachment to a thing, that could be attachment to a belief, that could be attachment to a thought. And in my case in here, it was attachment to feedback, attached to the judgment of the others, and making sure that I'm perceived the way that I would love to be perceived. So that was my own attachment that led me to some aversion on the counterpart of the branches, which is something that you dislike, right? So you could dislike a lot of things again. And in here could be my aversion for any kind of judgmental person. that I would put away on my path. Not even sometimes being aware that I'm judgmental myself, judging them to be judgmental, if you see what I mean. So that is also a kind of a block on the way that can happen sometimes. And then at the top of the tree, kind of the fruits that you can gather at the end are the fear. Something that we tackle a lot, I think, in coaching session. And we can also be caught on our own fears of not being successful, or what I wrote in here, fears of disappointing myself, fear of not being loved by others or by my coachee. So this is example of how I could use this abstraction to a clear mind, to tune my gaze inward to myself, and also understand better what are the blocks on the way when it comes to perform my role as a coach. I think that is also a tool and kind of approach that we use sometimes with our coaching tool. You could also, use it to kind of browse your own self, and also to help your coachee to understand what are the blocks on the way by inviting them to kind of draft 5 different kind of columns, and whenever they have a dilemma, a quest, or something that is on the way, to try to help to identify what are really the blocks on the way. I don't know, Alka, if you want to add something to that or to adjust it. Maybe I have also, I'm also on the journey of understanding, so that could also be that I have misunderstood one of the concepts. That would be lovely, by the way, so that we could all jump on that one and kind of fine tune the understanding.
Thank you, Fabian. I don't think so there is anything that you have misunderstood or anything, and I'm really grateful that you've shared this, and you actually shared it with your own personal experience about yourself rather than bringing someone else. So I think, I think you beautifully use the examples. So thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like to share on this with the team here?
No, what I was talking previously about the ritual, the idea of that sticking to my mind, and I think that when you want to be present to your own self, sometimes as a kind of preparation, and that is helpful too. All those kind of approach, common yogi concept, we can use them as preparation when we are facing with kind of situation that we want to be better present to our own self. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Fabian. I would like to invite all my fellow friends here. Any one of you would like to, when you look at Klesh, is there anything that comes to your mind about yourself? Any sharing that you would like to do? Some obstacle that you faced, obstruction that you faced. And we're not talking about coaches here, but if you can share about something, and then you can now see the identification, you can identify with one of the kleshas out here.
Till the time people are typing, Alka,
they can actually speak on this rather than.
Yeah. What I see is from, this kleshas, it's just not about coaching, but actually any area of life, these kleshas are playing a role, whether you talk of financial planning, investments, relationships, anything, one of these kleshas or one or even more of the kleshas are playing a role there. So it is just not coaching, but our entire presence and our entire operations, these kleshas are playing a role.
Absolutely. In fact, not on, because actually even Fabian, you said that earlier, and this does not just work on. So this is it. When you talk about the being part, and we talk about the presence, we cannot just say we will be this as a coach. When something is being working on your being, it's working on your whole self. As a coach, as a mother, as a father, as a spouse, as a friend, as an employee, as a boss, everything. Those are only the roles. But you so rightly said it, Aishwarya. This is what helps us, continuously in everything. Anyone else would like to say anything on this?
Hello, this is Makaran.
Yes. Yes.
I couldn't understand about attachment. Why it is a klesha?
Oh, interesting. Okay. So outcomes. Do you think we are attached, sir, to our outcomes?
Yes.
And would you say that sometimes being too attached to the outcomes tends to actually make a performance, it hinders our own performance actually? And the process?
Okay. From that angle, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, and you can also look at it, attachment to any other human being, right? Sometimes it loses the balance. Because when you're too attached to anything, even if I'm too attached to my opinion, to my ideas, most of the times you are very attached to our ideas. This is the way, I think this should happen. And if something does not happen in that manner, it upsets me. I'm angry. I don't like it.
Okay. Got it.
And that's the attachment that we are talking about here, that, that we've got to, that's why it's a klesha.
Okay.
Okay. So I know that this is a lot of theory, but yoga is nothing but practice. There are n number of techniques, which is very difficult to talk, which actually help us to look at ourselves, to go deeper into the, much beyond our values and beliefs, to question our own thinking, to question our own ways of our belief systems, and to challenge ourselves. It helps us to challenge ourselves to move forward. We need to do that. And that's what yoga actually has, many practices that help us to do that. Which of course is, one such, I'll just give you what we have as coaches. We do that a lot, which is a wheel of life. Yeah. I'll share with you a very interesting, in fact, and then we will stop for question answers. So Purusharth, the aims of life, or rather what motivates us. These are the motivations of life. This is what yoga gives us. Such a beautiful concept here. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. It says that these are the 4 basic motivations for anything that we do. We do whatever we are doing, all our actions. We talk about being in the here and now. All our actions, either we're doing it because ye hamara dharma hai, it's our dharma, or we are doing it for sustenance, prosperity, livelihood, or it gives us pleasure, or we are doing it because, some actions are selfless. We do it because we want to achieve, some realization, some moksha. And yes, moksha looked upon by the early, our sages, moksha was always when we give up, renunciation. But that's not the way we, understand. What we say, any selfless action is a small step towards that realization. And how do we look at all our actions, or how do we look at everything that we do in life, and kind of look at, make a chart out of this and see that, okay, is my time today going a lot around earth, and which is why I am missing out on some calm, moksha or dharma towards, and dharma is also a duty towards yourself. My health, taking care of myself is my dharma. It is the prime duty of myself. And so every time there is disharmony within me, the Purusharth says to us that there is an imbalance in this. And maybe you need to look at that, maybe there is something which is much lesser than it needs, because the four need to be, and it will be possible that at any given situation, one may be more, and you may choose, you may make a choice to have one more at a particular time. I'm going through a financial crisis. I need to concentrate on the earth for the time being. But after a point, I'll have to come back. So how do you manage, these motivations of life? So that's another. I think we are about coming. So I would like to open the forum for questions. This was only so much that we could have done in this session, giving you a little gist of things. Please, any questions, any sharing? How did you find? Whatever you would like to share, please go ahead.
Hi, this is, yeah, please go ahead.
No, go ahead, Makran. Oh, sorry, Deepak, go ahead.
Yeah, Alka, thanks for this. Probably the reason I was silent is there's lots of information which has just come in. So I'm trying to kind of absorb the entirety in totality. So when I look at the gunas, basically your sattva, rajas and tamas, and if I have to kind of look at mapping it, I'm talking from a coach perspective.
Yes.
And looking at kleshas. So let's say ignorance to your ego or identification, attachment. So in my view, growth happens only when there are kleshas, and that is a journey. One is me as a coach, or anybody of us as a coach have to be aware of where we are. And beyond that, from ignorance to knowledge would be a journey. From ego to not having any ego would be a journey. From attachment to complete detachment would be a journey. From fear of change to accepting change would be a growth. And similarly, from aversion to having passion to certain things would be a way of looking forward. So I think kleshas in a way is something would be there in each one of us, and we need to continuously move forward, and that is where growth would happen. Without growth, there'd obviously be decay. So if those are the kleshas and if these are the gunas, so what I'm thinking is, what are the two takeaways for me from this session? What are the two things which I'll probably learn and do differently? And one is, of course, the aspect of sattva, rajas and tamas. And like you mentioned, rajas is more of activity, exercise, movement. So please help me understand that would ideally lead to lots of experiences. And only after that, probably one would have clarity, calmness, harmony over a period of time. So is my understanding correct that from rajas to being sattvic, it's a journey? One can't directly get into a sattvic kind of a thing. That would be an ideal state one would like to be as a coach, but one needs to also experience the aspects of rajas, the activity and experience and so on. So this is something I just wanted to discuss. I'm not sure if it is a question or a comment. Like I said, I'm just absorbing all the powerful slides and information that you just shared with us. So that's for your comments, please.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm not, I didn't get your name, but Makran, right?
This is Deepak here.
Deepak, sorry. Deepak. Okay. Thank you, Deepak. At least thank you for sharing that. And first of all, let me tell you that even for me, this is a journey. And every time I more study about it, more try to apply it, more try to understand, put it into application, I come up with a different understanding of things. Honestly, this is how it happens. And as you first rightly said, where kleshas are concerned, first of all, none of us can do away with kleshas. It's a part of us. They'll always be there, right? What yoga tells us that if there is disharmony within us, if there is imbalance within us, if we are, we will get that feeling from our gut. If we are disturbed, then look into yourself and see what is it that's really coming in the way of you being able to manage that balance, right? The guna balance, again, like you very rightly said, gunas are also a part of us. We can't do away with them, right? We will continue to have the juggle between rajas, tamas, and sattva. I think the journey for us is, as coaches, to become aware of what is playing. You know, just like Tim also said, that much before the outer game happens, there is an inner game that is happening. And if we can be aware of that, so if we can be aware of what is happening inside us, how is my rajas playing? How is my tamas playing? Is it helping me to grow, like you said? I mean, there has to be activity. Rajas has to be a part of us. Otherwise, how will we move ahead? So as you rightly said, they will be there. We are not looking at becoming sages. We are just wanting to see that we can live a life which is balanced, which we are happy about, which we can say at the end of our journey, wow, it was something nice I did in this life. You know, it's a beautiful life. We can sit back on our rocking chairs and think have some beautiful memories around. We itna bhi hum agar kar lete hain, I think that's good enough.
Okay, I had similar one. Can I talk?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I had a similar one to what Deepak has said, what you have answered him, but more of an experience I wanted to share. That
Sure.
Initially what I understood was even being aware of what's happening with you, which is something that you find a lot of us, I mean, at least when I began, it was, you don't understand unless you are reflecting as to what's happening, you know, and identifying and not necessarily labeling it, but exactly understanding what exactly is happening, why are you behaving in a certain way, and trying and finding a solution for it. So my question maybe I would probably leave it with you, Alka, because I know this is not something that can be done in just an hour. But what my interest would be is within the journey itself, there are multiple milestones where you are achieving something, you know, in your journey. So I would want to know what are the other ways to actually, you know, reach those milestones while you're taking that journey. Like if you are moving or if you are trying to maintain a balance and there is a milestone that you set out for yourself. One of the things that I found out is, say, an activity like meditation, for example, can help. If that is something that is obvious and it is out there, and I think a lot of people are using it. But for me, I would really love to know, maybe in detail, maybe in some other session, how would you really move, you know, in your journey, how would you move from milestone to milestone?
Okay. So very honestly, so yoga is a way of life. Okay. It totally has to be imbibed into your every moment. And every time you try to make an effort towards one step, you see that, okay, there is something else. So it's a way of, if you've got to make it a way of your life, there's so much into it. And it's not something that we can do. Yoga is not something, when a lot of people say I do yoga, I find that it kind of makes me sad. That's all I can say. You can't do yoga. Yoga is a way of life. It's a part of your being, right? So when you talk about milestones, so I'll just give you my little example when you spoke about meditation. Yeah, it's a big word. When I started this practice at the Yoga Institute, Dr. Sahab used to, our guru at the institute was Dr. Yogendra Ji, Dr. Jayadev. And he used to say, Just sit. And go backward counting. And not see to it that when you do your backward counting, start from 100 to 1. And if you miss anything and if a single thought comes, go back to 100. This is a simple technique for focus, concentration. Can you concentrate on your, now why backward? Because we have become so mechanical that from 1 to 100, I will do it easy. The simple thing about going backward and counting from 100 to 1, it took me days to not have one single thought come before and not lose one single, number there. And I was like, when he first told me, I was like, oh, that's so simple, 100 to 1, not bad. It really took days. So to be able to sit and concentrate on something without having a thought takes a lot of practice. And to me, meditation is far beyond all that. So I've got to learn to first focus. And how do we do that? So those are so Nilofer has also asked here, so I'll come back. So to me, the milestones are simple, smaller, and small techniques of simply being aware. When I'm walking from morning to anywhere, to my office, okay, what all am I observing? How much am I aware of my feeling? These are simple techniques. What did I notice when I walked inside? How many times people just walk past us and we don't notice them? So again, Nilofer was also asking some tools and techniques to move on the journey. There are plenty of tools and techniques in yoga because yoga is only about practice. It's only about application. It's the Sankhya philosophy is about the theory piece, but yoga is only, its entire 2 chapters are on practices. So there is lots in there. And like we said that right now we don't have the time, but I've just shared a couple. To move on this journey, yes, there is enough. It's just that we need that belief. Yeah, this is something I would like to, work towards.
All right. No, thank you.
Hi.
Alka. Is there somebody else speaking?
Yeah, this is Indrajit. Hi, Alka.
Hi.
Firstly, thanks for this beautiful session. I have a quick reflection point and would like to invite your thoughts on that. So when we are talking about kleshas and when you are talking about ignorance to ego, to attachment, to aversion and fear of change, I was also thinking that from a coaching perspective, be it a coach or a coachee, as we grow, we develop a lot of learning from several things. And the biggest challenge which comes in our way is that unlearning process. As I recently joined the ACC program,
Right.
I think the first challenge which I was facing with myself was that how do I unlearn? And because that itself creates huge amount of abstractions, and I think has got a sort of a connection with all these 5. So anything you say or you would like to, I will not say prescribe, but you would like one to do in terms of sort of mastering the process of unlearning?
Great. So I seriously cannot, it's not something that I can, but okay, the first thing that comes to my mind is the 2 things that yoga says are the pillars, of all our learning or unlearning process, whatever. Any effort that we are doing, anything that we want to achieve, there are 2 main pillars what yoga tells us for the journey of for self-realization or in the journey of becoming better, effective as a human being or as a person or whatever. Yeah. One is abhyas and the other is vairagya. Abhyas means practice, but it says that you've just got to continue to practice. And vairagya is detached. So in your, if the unlearning piece that you're talking about is basically, I don't know, and again, I don't know if because you will have to really truly understand yourself that what is stopping you from unlearning or bringing in the new knowledge. And what is that? What is stopping you from doing that? And the kleshas, if you will look deep down, it will help you to understand what is that it stops you from. Because you're right. If there is already something on a seat, how will I sit there? I've got to first take away a lot of things. You know, if I want to paint, I've got to have a fresh canvas. I can't paint on already a painting which is there. So that's, to me, continue practice, and what is it that stops, you will understand, you will have your own answer on in the kleshas. And someone said it very beautifully, practice and being detached. And detachment, we've got to just practice.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Alka. So cognizant of the time, I would like to tell you all that somebody had asked session 2, I think that was Nilofer. And I want to tell you all that CTT conducts a Yog Psychology program, which is delivered by Alka and Atul. So if anybody is interested, do write to us and we'll give you the details of the programs as well. Alka, thank you so much for your wonderful session. Actually, it has triggered me and inspired me to go back to my Patanjali Yoga Sutras and have a look at it, reread those Yoga Sutras and what is it they communicate. So I'll go back to my book, which is just right next to me, and reread them on a regular basis. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And yes, I do want to, since you've mentioned, this program is always done with my co-facilitator also. He's also my coach, Mr. Atul Mathur. And today for personal reasons, he's not been there. But yeah, it has been, we've been doing sessions on this together always.
It's a 30-hour program which the 2 faculty run, and we'll be more than happy to give you the details of the program if anybody is interested. All right. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining in this webinar, and I hope you all found it useful and beneficial. Thank you so much, Fabian, for being there. And thank you so much, everybody. Krishna, do you want to say something?
Thank you. And namaste. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.